The river was louder than usual that evening. The villagers often said that when the river roared, it was hungry. But to Derek, a quiet young farmer who had escaped to the riverside to think, the noise was just background, thunderous, yet strangely calming. He stood barefoot on the moist soil, staring at the churning waters as the last streaks of sunset bled across the sky. He didn't expect the scream. At first, he thought it was just the cry of a distressed bird. Until it came again, louder, sharper, human. A child. His heart instantly lurched. Derek sprinted toward the sound, crashing through tall reeds. When he reached the riverbank, he froze for a short second, long enough to feel his own blood turn cold. A small boy was flailing violently in the water, his tiny hands breaking through the surface before disappearing under again. The current had him. It wasn't letting go. Without thinking twice, Derek threw off his shirt and plunged into the icy water. The shock hit him instantly, but adrenaline burned hotter. He fought the current, strokes sharp and desperate, eyes locked on the sinking child. He lunged forward, grabbing the boy by the arm just as the river threatened to swallow him whole. The child was unconscious, limp. Derek tightened his grip and began the brutal struggle back to the riverbank. The river battered him, dragging at him like an angry beast, but he pushed on, every muscle screaming, lungs burning. When he finally reached the mud, he dragged the child ashore and dropped to his knees, choking on air. He immediately began pressing on the boy's tiny chest. "Come on, breathe, breathe." Just when panic clawed at his throat, the child coughed violently and spat out river water. Relief punched through Derek, so strong he nearly sobbed. But before he could even catch his breath, a woman burst through the trees. Not just any woman. She moved like a storm, hair wild, steps frantic, eyes blazing with terror until they landed on her child. In one breath she scooped the boy into her arms, clutching him as if afraid someone might snatch him away again. Then she turned to Derek. Their eyes met. And everything stopped for a moment. Her face, drenched in tears, glowing with gratitude, trembling with shock, was unlike anything he'd ever seen. Beautiful, fierce, vulnerable. "Why, you saved him," she whispered. "My son, you saved my son." Before he could speak, she dropped to her knees. He panicked. "Please, no, stand up. But she touched her forehead to the earth before him. A gesture of ancient respect. A gesture he had only heard about in stories. When she rose, her eyes were different, shining with a mixture of awe and something else he couldn't quite name. "My name is Avelina," she said softly. "And you, according to our ancestors' law, are now my husband." Derek blinked. "What?" Avelina placed a hand over her heart, voice trembling but firm. "In our tribe, any person who saves a child's life becomes bound to the mother. It is a sacred covenant passed down for centuries. You pulled my son from death. You are now my chosen one." Derek stared at her, drenched, exhausted, and unable to process anything. I don't think. Surely there's a misunderstanding." But she shook her head gently. "You don't understand," she whispered. "This is not a choice. It is the law of my ancestors, and my heart accepts it fully." Thunder rolled above them. The wind shifted. The river calmed. Avelina stepped closer, her son still clutched in her arms. "Come home with us," she said. "Your life is now tied to mine." Derek swallowed hard. "That's impossible." But her eyes, fierce and tender, held him captive. "Nothing is impossible," she murmured. "Fate brought you to this river. Fate delivered my son into your hands. And fate has given me a husband." He had no words. Only the roaring river behind him. And the woman in front of him declaring that his life had changed forever. Derek followed Avelina through the forest, still shaken, still unbelieving. She carried her son on her hip, the boy now awake and quiet, clutching her clothing. Every few steps she glanced back at Derek as if to make sure he hadn't disappeared. The forest grew denser. Torches glowed in the distance. Voices murmured. Soon, they stepped into a village woven from tradition, huts with carved wooden beams, stone fire pits, elders seated beneath giant ancestral trees. The moment Avelina entered, the villagers rushed toward her. Is the child safe? What happened? Who is that man? Then Avelina spoke one sentence. He saved my son. A wave of gasps swept through the crowd. Derek felt dozens of eyes pin him in place, some curious, some suspicious, some knowing. Then the oldest woman stepped forward. Her back was bent, but her presence commanded silence. Her gaze settled on Derek with unsettling clarity. You have done more than perform an act of bravery, she rasped. You have fulfilled an ancient decree. Derek rubbed the back of his neck. Ma'am. I think there's been some confusion. I didn't come here to. She raised a hand, and the entire village fell silent. Save a child, she said, and you save a future. Our law is older than any of us. When a woman's only child is taken by the river and returned by another, the bond is sealed. Avelina stepped beside Derek. I accept him, elder, she said. I accept the law's judgment. Derek turned to her sharply. You don't even know me. Avelina's eyes softened. I know enough. A man who risks his life for a child who is not his has a heart worthy of trust. The elder nodded approvingly. The joining ceremony will take place at sunrise. Wait, what ceremony? Derek nearly choked. Our marriage rite, Avelina said gently. You are to be my husband. He took a step back, overwhelmed. You can't force this. I'm a stranger. I was just walking by. The elder's voice cut through like a blade. You did not stumble here by accident. Fate only moves those it chooses. Avelina reached out and touched his arm, lightly, almost afraid he'd pull away. I'm not trying to trap you, she whispered. I am only honoring what our people believe. If you refuse, you don't just reject me. You reject our entire lineage. The village murmured at her words. Derek looked around, at the torches flickering against the dark sky, at the villagers watching him with hope and reverence, at the child clutching his mother's dress. And for a moment, he felt the weight of something ancient pressing against his chest. Avelina spoke again, voice barely audible. If you wish to leave, I won't stop you. But, my people may not look kindly upon it. Fear tingled up his spine. Not fear of danger. Fear of responsibility he never asked for. He swallowed hard. So what happens if I stay? Avelina met his gaze, steady, sincere, a storm hidden behind calm eyes. Then you become part of our tribe. My partner. A father to my son. And together, we follow the path the ancestors have laid for us.